Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Inside the Birds TV with Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. And with 2 games left to play and the potential of an Eagles clinch on Sunday against Washington, Adam and I thought it's a great week to answer some questions, some Ask ITB questions. We've teased toward it in our last few podcasts. And as we promised, if you left us a 5-star review on Apple and had a question in your review, we would answer it on our next Ask ITB. So that's what this is. And we look forward to getting to all your questions. And of course, we'll do this more as the off-season approaches and free agency and the draft. But we knew a lot of people would have questions as they head into a little last-ditch playoff push here, which, again, could happen on Sunday. We'll see. So, Adam, why don't you've got the questions. Why don't we get started?
All right, so this one was emailed from the contact at InsideTheBirds.com from Brian. Miles Sanders is hurt again. Is now a good time to trade him after the season? Well, obviously, you can't do anything until the 3rd week of March. That's when the trading season opens. And when you look at his injury history, it's pretty significant. He heads into 22 on the last year of his contract. I can't imagine the Eagles would even think of extending him based on his injury history. We know he's very gifted. When he plays, he's generally pretty good. But if you look at his injuries this year, ankle, chest, right ankle, right foot, ankle, quadriceps, broken hand, you couldn't justify it, and he won't be back into the playoffs if they make it. So you cannot justify extending his contract. You just can't. Even if Jeff, I would look at it this way. If you and I were running it, I'd say even if the agent wanted to do a team-friendly deal, I don't know if I'd do it, because the way that they run the football, it seems like they could run it with anyone. He's their best guy. I don't see the point in extending his contract at this point.
Yeah, we talked about how they've drafted Kenneth Gainwell in the 5th round, and he has already shown that he's got good potential in the league, and it's a fungible position. You can find a pretty good running back in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round as well to pair with Gainwell. I don't know that this running game is going to look next year and the year after the way it has this year. So, but that being said, I don't want to just toss Miles Sanders aside. I would agree with you. You don't necessarily have to give him even a team-friendly extension this offseason. You can let him see if he can stay healthy next year and emerge as that reliable 3-down back. And if he has a great year, are you overpaying a little bit because he's closer to free agency? Yeah, you don't have to give him the extension then either. Or you can just say, hey, he's worth it. He's that good and he stayed healthy. So I'm with you on that. I think the one thing I'll say is, as far as the question, though, I can't imagine a trade is going to be in the works, because in general, I don't think teams value running backs enough to trade draft capital for them, unless it's something like a 6 with your Eagles. You're not going to take a 6th or a 5th for Miles Sanders. So I think they would rather hold on to him, let him have a good year, let him walk and get a good comp pick in return, than trade him for anything lower than a 4th, which I doubt that they would get anyway. So I don't see the trade as being really a solid option there.
Agree with you. Here's from our Apple 5-star review from Mike. Mike, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. SMO, Smo. I don't know how else to say it.
Mikey Schmo.
Smo, yeah. He titles it "Homework for All Eagle Fans." This podcast is a perfect example of how independent media can change discussion. Appreciate that, Mike.
Thank you.
I'm very interested in the draft process and have a question. This is a great question. I cannot wait to talk about this because I know who this guy is. I actually was on a call with him. Do the Eagles have an equivalent of Colts Director of Player Development Brian Decker? With these picks being a roll of the dice, I feel like a 22-year veteran Green Beret is quite an advantage in evaluating the mental makeup of potential draftees. Keep up the great work. You nailed it, Mike. So here's the story on Brian Decker. Joe Banner hired him with the Browns. I asked Joe about this, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I forget how he found them. I don't know. He brought him into the Browns. The guy was tremendous in evaluating. What teams are looking to do is figure out how likely, because you could do it with each team has a psychologist who will do mental makeup work on players before the draft. Seahawks have one of the best ones. The guy's name escapes you right now. I'm actually found the guy on Twitter. The guy's really good, but Decker is different. Brian he does some of that, but it's more about he takes everything that the guy's done in his career. because he's not a psychologist. He just looks at what it takes to be, being a guy that's a Green Beret. He knows what the makeup of to handle mental stuff and being able to play through injury and all that stuff. Being what he was involved with for a lot of his career out of high school and so forth. The Eagles don't have anyone like that, to my knowledge. I know they have psychologists, and I know they have someone who does work for them, like every team does. For mental, how likely is this guy if a player had an issue in his college career, how likely is he to have that in his pro career? And I know that that's where the psychologists will come in based on human behavior. But Decker's a little different, though there's some similarities. And Decker, I was on he was our friends at 3013 brought him in a year or so ago. He was doing a call, and he was tremendous. He's sort of a pragmatist in terms of how things should be done, but he takes it way farther than that, and very impressive guy. It's a great question. I don't know why more teams don't do this, Mike, because there was actually a story done on him. It was either ESPN.com or one of the websites did a piece on him a couple years ago. I'm shocked. I remember reading it and thinking, man, well, now that it's out, why doesn't more teams do this? To my knowledge, I mean, maybe someone knows better than I don't know if any other teams have done this.
No, I haven't heard of it. And honestly, until we saw the question, Adam, I didn't even know about, what's his name, Brendan Parker?
Brian Decker.
Brian Decker. I was close until that question. So that's fascinating. I'm actually surprised, based on what you said about this guy, that the Eagles don't have somebody like that, because that feels like one of those areas of progressive thinking that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman ordinarily like to tout. So all I know is that the Eagles have a guy who does some of that kind of work, and his name is Big Dom. And Big Dom is more likely to sit you in a chair and shine a big light in your eye and scare you into confessing every sin you've ever done in your life, just based on his presence alone, than maybe getting into an analytical or psychological discussion with you. So, and Big Dom serves a great purpose. So it usually works more time.
He's an information gatherer. Dom DeSandro is the director of security.
Yeah.
We learned under Butch Bucciano, the former director of security, was the former bodyguard of Mayor Rendell many moons ago. All right, here's another one from Apple 5-star from C and Ham 12. Hey guys, thanks for all the great info each week. My question is this: what is our red zone identity? This is another good one. This one's going to make us think here. What is our red zone identity? The fact that I have to ask this is damning already. What is our offense relying on short gains and compresses the field, which leads to the need for creative red zone plays? I just don't see it. No shovel passes, no option plays. So vanilla. See what I did here? It's so vanilla. It hurts. But see, here's the thing, and it's to your point on this question. Yeah, I mean, shovel pass, Andy Reid, you see it. Like they don't do it every week. They do it maybe every 3 or 4 weeks. It could be to Kelsey. They used to do it with Anthony Sherman. They called him the sausage, the fullback. Yeah, I love to see it. It's great. So what are your thoughts on that?
I was just trying to check real quick. I think the Eagles have a pretty good red zone offense, even though, Adam, maybe looking at it in person, it may not be the most creative one with the shovel passes or the trickery. Yeah. And, of course, everybody's kind of up in arms about Hurts missing Dallas Goedert wide open in the end zone. But as I look here right now while we're doing this, the Eagles have the 12th best red zone offense in the league. I mean, at one point it was higher than that. So I'm a little surprised to see it's down to 12. They're at 61%. So, yeah, it certainly can be better. And, obviously lately it hasn't been as good as it was earlier in the year. They have a guy like Goddard who's a good red zone weapon. But really, their wide receivers, I wouldn't say are great red zone weapons. You've got more of the short, quick or thin, quick guys like Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins. Then you do have the tall Alshon Jeffrey types who are always
great
good.
Point.
Yep. I suppose they could probably go to a little bit more 12 and 13 personnel and try to work play action pass and get the ball to, if not Goddard, then a Jack Stoll or Tyree Jackson with that big body. Maybe that's something that we'll see over the next 2 games. But I think it's a fair criticism. They don't really do a whole lot of creative stuff down close to the red zone. Of course, they tried doing some creative stuff earlier in the year. We all remember the 49ers game with the sort of modified version of the Philly special that they tried to run that got botched. So maybe that's why they stopped doing the creative.
Well, here's the question, Dale. Here's the issue. I mean, here's that Dale's the next guy. The question on the red zone is, this is where Arcega-Whiteside was supposed to help them. Mm-hmm. This is the one area where they thought, at the very least, he could help them because he's 6'2", and he has not helped them at all in that area. I get that he blocks, plays on special teams. That's not what he was drafted for. That's a 5th-round pick. That's the cut. What he does is what a 5th-round pick would do. This is not what a 2nd-round pick should be doing. So you need to get more production. Obviously, they're not going to get any production from him on offense. They don't use him other than to block. So the miss on Arcega-Whiteside as a receiver, as a guy who catch the football and give him size in the red zone, that plays to your point. 100%. That miss on him as a pass catcher with size in the red zone. That the first I remember we did that was our. Is this his third year? Third?
Yeah, end of his 3rd year.
Yeah, we did our post draft show, and I remember that at the very least they'll get him in the red zone area. They tried, it didn't work, and he never made it in that area. That miss on him in that area has crushed them for that.
Right. Remember, the red zone is an area where all coaches like to run, and the Eagles. Well, no, coaches like to run, but it's harder to run because you're more bunched in. You got
right, as you said,
keyed in on it. So that's when you're gonna have to, excel in the passing element of the game, and that's really not where the Eagles are strongest at the moment. So that's obviously something that's going to have to develop, and it's fair criticism that they could be a better red zone team.
Fair enough.
What's next?
All right, this is from an Inside the Birds Ask ITB question submission from our website, contact@insidethebirds.com. As I sit back and look at the Eagles quarterbacks, I am left with the impression, this is from Dale, we may need to take a look at the quarterback coaches. Since Peterson, has there been any significant change to the quarterback coaches? How is it? Negative narrative seems to spin with our quarterbacks, and as soon as they leave, their production improves and narrative is flawless. What, if anything, are we doing wrong, and how? Thank you, Dale. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Jalen Hurts has improved, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, of course, they have a new quarterbacks coach because they have a new coaching staff. It's Brian Johnson. And I think we have seen improvement from Jalen Hurts, and we saw Gardner Minshew go in there and play fairly well in his start. I mean, I don't know how much Brian Johnson really had to do with that, but so even over the last few years, who was the quarterbacks coach? DeFilippo did a great job with Carson in 2017. We know that he moved on, and then the quarterbacks coach became is it Press Taylor?
Taylor, yes.
Yeah, I mean we did detail that there were some obvious coaching issues there, both with Carson himself and with Press Taylor. And he's not the quarterbacks coach with the Colts right now. He's a specialist, and I think we talked in great detail about the decline in productivity from the quarterback coaching position when Press Taylor was there. So I mean, they obviously moved on from him, and they have somebody new now.
Yeah, he was not going to be offered a chance to come back, as I understand it. It was they moved on. They hired Brian Johnson, who's known Jalen Hurts since he was a kid, who's a pretty good coach in terms of understanding the way the league is going. He called plays at University of Florida. I remember at Utah as a quarterback. So no, they've gotten production out of Hurts. He's improved. Is he where he needs to be? No, but we'll have more on him. When the time comes to see where this thing's going with him, we have a general idea, but there's 2 more games left. There's a potential of a playoff game, pretty high probability they'll be in the wild card round. Mm-hmm. So we'll see, but I understand because sometimes guys leave, and they were, it had not the quarterback, but some other positions guys do well, but I don't see. I know your point's right about DeFilippo. Like after he left, Wentz was hurt a lot, and then he had the issue, obviously, it's been well detailed with Peterson.
Right.
That unfortunately never got resolved, and that was really obviously pretty big negative last season. Well, remember now, Nate Sudfeld had a major regression after DeFilippo left. That was one of the guys who they thought internally they were onto something with him. And he steadily declined. Once DeFilippo left, he was the guy who really developed him. It was a like that. He just lost it. He was never the same. So that Dale, on your question, would absolutely nail it. That plays right in it because that one they were sure they were on the next really good backup for Wentz, And one of the biggest reasons why they drafted Jalen Hurts is because they wanted to upgrade and they didn't want to spend a lot of money. You and I detailed this right after the draft about what we had heard. They never thought he'd be the starter. It's 9 months after they extended Wentz's contract. They drafted Hurts. I mean, that's
amazing.
What happened.
All right, next one.
All right, that was a good one. Let's see what else do we have here, folks. Let's see. Let's see here. Hang on a sec.
While you look, I will remind people to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB. Bet just $5 on any NFL team and win $200 in free bets if that team is victorious. That's promo code ITB this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, but you got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay, good one. This is from our message board. This is a really well asked question, Ben. I like from Benjamin Gold. We know Ben. He's been with us from the beginning. I know Ben's been very outspoken. He gets some heat from the people in the message board. It'll be like a 50 threaded comments, but this is a very fair way to put it. So here's what Benjamin Gold asked, or said and then asked. Jalen Hurts has all the tangibles of leadership, work ethic, respect from his teammates, absolutely. So why are people like myself skeptical of him being our franchise quarterback moving forward? Is it his arm, his ability to process? Is it just inexperience? Shed some light on me being on the fence about him. This is a great way to frame it. That's like, you could have done any better. I think it's all fair. We had Joe Banner on, Jeff, as you remember. Joe did a phenomenal job explaining processing. We went over a lot of quarterbacks who process well, didn't process well, high test score guys, low test score guys. It had next to nothing to do with what their test score was. Sometimes it's hard to figure out, but I just think it's what we've been talking about. Jason Avant's talked about it. Greg Cosell's talked about it. Jeff and I have talked about it based on what we've been told. He said he in terms of processing, he's big on the first read. He doesn't get off the first read very much, and that's something that has to happen. He's got to get off that first read. It's obviously not going to happen now. That's an all-season project if he's back next year as a starter. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on his arm? Obviously, ability to process, lack of experience. Remember he transferred because Nick Saban made a decision. He was not going to go with him anymore. It was going to be Tua. Mm-hmm. That Nick Saban had a decision to make, and he made a decision, so he transferred to Oklahoma. So what are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Well, I mean, I'm not as concerned about the arm strength as long as he puts the work in, if he's given the opportunity to improve the diagnosing and improve on his timing and the rhythm that he needs to establish with his wide receivers, because his arm is good enough to be able to make almost every throw. It's not great, but he's not going to be like Justin Herbert, who can thread a window and wait for that guy. Donovan used to do this all the time. Donovan had such a strong arm. He could wait for a guy to get open instead of throwing a guy open. Well, Jalen doesn't have that kind of arm. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Justin Herbert. He's not Lamar Jackson from an arm strength standpoint. So he is going to have to then improve on the other elements of the game. Russell Wilson does not have a very strong arm, but he's one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. I know this year is not his best year, but in general, because he throws with tremendous timing, anticipation, accuracy. He throws a high arcing deep ball. Same with Phillip Rivers. They just knew how to compensate for the lack of their arm strength by putting the ball where it needed to be at the right time. And that you have to see more of from Jalen Hurts. The difficult thing is that's not something we can sit here today and say he's definitely going to be 60% better at it next year and then the year after. It's some of that is, it's really for the coaches, the Eagles coaches, to decide, do they see enough Monday through Sunday, and it's not just games, it's every single practice. They're with him from OTAs to training camp, every day of practice and season. Do they see enough to believe that he will make those steps as a quarterback to be able to be a more complete quarterback, or is there going to be a shinier toy that they're going to want to chase after and win quicker? And, it doesn't really matter what our opinion is at that point. It's what the Eagles are going to do.
Yeah, no, it's I think when it comes to Hurts, it's just you outlined it for us back in like April or May or something about the technical part of his game, the mechanics. because he's got what I saw at the Senior Bowl was, I don't want to say alarming. It was concerning because he's got the over the top throw wind up. It needed to be adjusted. It needed to be cleaned up a little bit. And I know you had the note about us that was something they were going to work on. So to me, even if he comes back as the backup, they need to work on that. That's something that can improve. You can shorten up the windup a little bit,
Definitely.
but you can't drastically do it. These guys, quarterbacks come in with a certain way that they throw. They've thrown their whole life. You can't completely change the thing, but there's certain things you can do. Footwork's got to be better. There's some stuff with his mechanics that have to be better, but the other part of it is the positive is you had the Denver game where he was terrific. I mean, I still think that was his best game this season. And his willingness to cut it loose downfield to Smith in the middle of his route. We detailed that when it happened. You've seen him compete at a high level against Kansas City. Well, that was great because that was after the really bad 2 games in a row. The Niners and Cowboys, he did not play well, and he really he did all he could. It wasn't his fault. They put up 30 that game. The defense was terrible.
Sure.
And here's one for you. The Carolina game, he was terrible for 3 quarters. He brought the team back, and somehow they won.
I think that's why, Adam, the question Ben asked was, why is he skeptical? And it's just because, whenever the Eagles are in a position where they have to throw the ball like 5, 6, 7 times in a row, it's usually not the best results for them, and then everybody starts screaming, run the ball. But then they see, I want to see Jalen Hurts develop. So it's tough. I mean, it's tough not to have envy. And when you see the younger guys like the Allens and the Josh Allen and the Justin Herberts of the world and not want that, the Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's what everybody wants out of their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, no, very well, fair way to frame it. And then following up on that, Armando Peraza from our message board asks, is it fair to compare Hurts to the other rookie QBs? If so, how does he compare? No, it's not, because he's not a rookie. He's a second-year quarterback. First year starting, though, first full year. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people bring this up, but I just don't. I wouldn't look at it that way. And rookie quarterbacks, a lot of them are playing before they were ready. Trevor Lawrence was not ready when they played him, but you had to play him as the first pick overall. Zach Wilson, as we outlined, when they played the Jets, before the Jets, after, during our post game and all that, he wasn't ready.
Well, Trevor Lawrence should have been ready. I think if he was in a better situation, like if he were on any other team with a real head coach and a real, environment, I think he'd be fine, or at least better than what you've seen. But I mean, he didn't come out raw. It's not like Zach Wilson with one good year at BYU.
Fair enough. And Justin Fields needs work, although he started to develop. He's had like 3 or 4 injuries, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. He didn't start the season. Andy Dalton did. And then Trey Lance has barely played. Now he might be starting this week because the right thumb injury for Garoppolo. But Armando, a lot of people bring that up. Just the way you asked it, a lot of people brought it up. I just don't think, to answer your question, I don't think it's really fair to compare it that way. But
I almost don't think it's fair to even compare him to the other second-year quarterbacks, because he was a second-round pick, and some of those guys like Herbert and Tua were top 10. I mean, you can make the comparison if you want, but it's almost a little bit not fair to put him up in that same echelon. Sure.
Let me see if we have. Hang on 1 second. No, it's not one. Let's see here. We have more. So we get through this.
I am fascinated. I mean, Tua has. I'm sort of fascinated by that comparison because they both went to Alabama, and they're almost polar opposites in how they go about trying to, their craft. I mean, Jalen's a very athletic, dynamic runner. He can throw a deep ball better, I think, than Tua. Although if Tua throws it with the right timing and accuracy, he can go the ball downfield. But Tua is very much
not
a rhythm.
That far.
Yeah, that's true. Not too far. He's a rhythm and flow type of passer. I mean, he's sort of Drew Brees-esque when he's on, as far as ball placement and just finding the right windows. But outside of that, he doesn't have a whole lot of dynamic qualities as a quarterback, at least not that I've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. One of there's a question about the punt return game and what they can do about it, but I can't. The guys, it's hard to understand what he's saying.
Well, we can just address in general. I mean, do you think Jalen Reagor needs to be taken? I'm still not
better last week.
Boy, he was better. Yeah.
Yeah. That run up the middle was nice, and he actually had 2 decent returns. One was really good.
Right.
I just don't understand with Rager why he's not as dynamic as he was. You could argue in his last year in college at TCU, who's the best returner in college football in terms of punts. Looked like a running back, darting and weaving. He was so explosive.
Yep.
There's no logical answer that I have about why he's not been as good as he should be, just as an overall player. I understand Hurts has missed a month of throws for their 2 years together. That's a fact. We've been told by several people this has happened. Mm-hmm. But it's not like 50 throws. Occasionally it happens. But when he gets the ball, why is he not more explosive? That's the question I'd love to know.
Well, as far as a punt returner, I feel like I've seen this before. I mean, Jeremy Maclin was one of the best punt returners in college when he was at Missouri. He was explosive. He was dynamic. He had touchdowns. He was just a fantastic special teams player, but he could not do it at the NFL level. Why? Can't tell you. Don't know, but he was given a chance earlier in his rookie year to return some punts and do some things in practice, and you could tell right away. I remember watching him at Lehigh. It just was not something he was going to be specializing in, and then he never did at the NFL level. And we'll have to see with Jalen. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's the way the ball's in the air and you're just not, bigger, faster guys coming down to the NFL and you kind of like tighten up at the last second. I really couldn't tell you. But I have seen it before. I think it's definitely safe to say we've seen some guys really be excellent special teams players in college, but not be able to translate that to the NFL. But Maclin was a very good wide receiver, so I don't necessarily make any correlation between not being maybe the more dynamic punt returner as we've seen to maybe meaning he'll never be a good wide receiver. And I will say we have seen a couple of good punt returns, even going back last year, the one he had against Green Bay. So with him, I just feel like it might be a confidence thing. You got one more?
Hang on. Let me go one. Let me see.
All right, make sure you're checking out our friends at Sky Motor Cars. You can go visit their website at skymotorcars.com or go out there to their headquarters in Westchester, PA. Make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. Always thank our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
I got another one. Okay.
Let's close it on this.
Hashtag, this is the hashtag AskITB on Twitter. All right, from M. Pfeiffer. Okay. I think what's his first name? We don't know what his first name is. Okay, Mr. M. Does the current form of
Go ahead.
Does the current form of Jalen Hurts give the Eagles more leverage in trade talks if they were exploring a deal for a big-time QB? I think we can all agree Jalen has done enough to be the QB next year. I don't think so. I mean, to be the backup, yes. He hasn't done enough to be the guy. No, I definitely don't agree with that. I don't know where you're getting at. But Howie's going to be still going to be Howie, right? Well, see, the thing is, again, if you're calling it down the middle, what would you give any reason to think he's definitely the guy? Where's he shown enough consistency? We've talked about the progress. You've seen some progress, but it's not been enough to say he's definitely the guy. I don't think that's even arguable.
Well, I feel uncomfortable today putting the cart before the horse. The Eagles have not made the postseason yet. They have not beat Washington. I know it's assumed that they will, but they haven't. And if they were finished the season 0-2 and the passing game would not look good, certainly that would reshape some of the thinking around Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think he's deserved enough to come back if the organization wasn't dead set on always having an elite quarterback or an elite passing game. He's at least done enough to show that he can grow more. But as the question's being asked there, is Howie going to quote unquote be Howie? And absolutely, I do think the organization will dip its toe in those waters if they're available of getting the best quarterback who might be available to them first.
Now, yes, and that my final comment on that would be for Hurts to come back to the starter. It'll be majority of it will be the tape study, but the other part is what Jeff's talking about, and playing into that is this: you got to see who's going to be available, whether it's Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. You got to see which veterans are available, and what the cost is. Then you got to look at the draft. This is my early sense is just talking to personnel people who've already watched, they've graded the tape of the quarterbacks. Within the first 50 picks, there'll probably four to six quarterbacks go. Their quarterbacks, as we always know, always go way higher than they should. So the Eagles have to decide, are any of those quarterbacks better than Hurts?
Right.
That will play into it. So this all does play in it. It's not just his tape study, which is obviously very important. But and Jeff said, look, if they don't make the playoffs, and it's obvious that Hurts is the reason why, then the decision's already made. If he plays well and they make the playoffs and they shock the world and win that first game, and he's a big reason why, then they're gonna have, then it could be tilted. You're right. I'm glad you framed it that way. They still got to get through these final 2 games. Again, most teams will tell you they have a general idea where this is going, but and plus they have to meet with the coaches after the season is over. This is the way it goes. Coaches turn in their grades, then they have meetings with in January with the personnel staff, and they give their opinions, and then this will help shape their off season. Though the general manager will has personnel control, he'll decide what happens. And then with this quarterback, because we know that Jeffrey Lurie's opinion was heavily involved with the Hurts decision. It's not a secret. This is written about by The Athletic, and other people who cover the team know this. Not a secret. So that could play into it. And in Jeffrey's voice, and we all know this, he wants a franchise quarterback.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where that is. Good stuff. I mean, we understand Hurts is the number one issue faces the football team in the offseason. Well, it's not just Hurts. It's the quarterback. It's the future of the quarterback.
Yeah, the one thing I'll close on this is that what we can't predict here with 2 weeks left, not only is how they'll finish, but we could just never know how Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, the brain trust, are going to feel about any of those quarterbacks you mentioned in the draft. I hear fans say all the time, this Kenny Pickett's not that good, and this Carson Strong, he doesn't look like he's good, or Matt Corral, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, and it doesn't even matter. But to be honest, whether Adam and I agree or disagree, it matters if the coaching staff and the front office fall in love with a guy and they believe he's that good. And the one, I guess, example recently we can use is I don't think anybody at the end of last year knew the 49ers were going to be so in love with Trey Lance that they were going to move up to 2 to take him when they had Garoppolo. I mean, we can talk about Garoppolo's injury history and everything and what he is as a quarterback. He's still a quarterback who had been to a Super Bowl and is a pretty decent quarterback.
3 years ago.
But Kyle Shanahan fell in love with a guy. And nobody saw that coming until maybe like a week or 2 or 3, whenever the combine happened, where the buzz started to gather. Nobody knew about that last November or December. And so we can't tell you what's going to happen with this coaching staff and front office and who they are or aren't going to fall in love with. But I do know on Inside the Birds, we're pretty good at finding that out when the time comes. So stick with us, and we will be the gateway to that kind of information when the time comes. We'll do it. I think we'll wrap it up there for this Ask ITB edition of Inside the Birds TV. And let's see, the next Inside the Birds will drop on Friday morning, 6 a.m. We'll preview this big game coming up between the Eagles and Washington football team. Q&A will drop Thursday at 6 a.m. And, of course, the Inside the Birds pregame live show will be at 10 a.m., 10 a.m. till noon on our YouTube channel and other Inside the Birds social media platforms on Sunday. And come on down. We'll have a big watch party as well. If you want to join us. Have a good time. We'll give away some autographed memorabilia there, and it'll be a blast. All right, so for Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. Thanks for watching the latest Inside the Birds TV. Happy New Year, everyone.